People are tuned in for Overwatch, and hello, YouTube. Welcome to the Sandwich Shop. I'm Hoagie, and as you know, we, twice a week at least, on Mondays and Wednesdays, we go through the hottest, the latest Overwatch League gaming news, and we talk about what it means. And we are in the off-season. Rosters are just starting to get announced. There's some teams that have yet to announce their rosters. They're still working on them. And so we're kind of scrounging, right? We're scrounging for gaming news. So we're going across Twitter. We're looking at, Wikipedia with tournaments that are happening, doing all those kinds of things, trying to find what the people want to hear about, and then compiling it in our Sandwich Shop Run a show here. We have 3 stories for you today. We have some competitive Overwatch that we were going to watch. I don't know. I've got some ideas of what I want to do, and we're going to think about it when we get there, about what exactly we want to do with the rest of our time after we are done watching looking at these stories. There was the NR Champions, which was a Middle Eastern single elim tournament. It is the most recent kind of competitive Overwatch VODs that we have. I was thinking, I haven't really seen. I watched a little bit of the Calling All Heroes tournament. We are still in kind of the Carrico Lucio meta, So I haven't really seen outside of that much organized Overwatch played at the competitive level. Also, Nightbot active again with the Monday Morning Meta Report. That is a very outdated Monday Morning Meta Report, but we will be bringing that back for Overwatch for the Overwatch League season coming up. But anyway, so I thought, this would be a good bridge getting me reacclimated with just high-level competitive 5v5 Overwatch. However, this first story has me thinking that I might want to watch something different, all right? And that is that Rui has been hired to be the Hangzhou Spark's head coach. So we're glad to announce Rui has joined Hangzhou Spark as our head coach, known for his bold tactics. Rui once coached the Shanghai Dragons. I think that was just for a very, very brief stint. I don't even know if he coached an entire tournament for the Shanghai Dragons, but then he was the head coach for the Chengdu Hunters, and he was also the head coach of Team China in the Overwatch World Cup in 2018-2019, who I will argue that 2018 Chinese Overwatch World Cup team, one of the most entertaining competitive Overwatch teams ever assembled. Put Guxue on the map. Rui is known for his kind of bold approach and anti-meta approach to heroes. Now, this is hard news to kind of digest and process because the Spark have not announced their roster, right? But we do still have Guxue on that roster. Who else is still on that roster? Let's go to Wikipedia for Hangzhou Spark. Shy. So we still have Shy. We still have Guxue on the roster. And then outside of that, nothing is really confirmed. We got Rui as the coach of the Hangzhou Spark. And then sky's the limit here. I wonder if they aren't pivoting to a full Chinese roster again. They had the mixed roster with Koreans and Chinese players on it last year. Who was... Yeah, Ligue was on there as a Chinese player. The rest of the roster was Korean. We had the mixed roster in 2021. I thought at some point they tried to go full Chinese roster. But I'm wondering if maybe, bringing Rui as the head coach, you've got Guxue, you've got Shy. Do you just kind of lean in, try to sign more Chinese Overwatch players, claim the magic of 2018, 2019 Chinese World Cup Overwatch, and going back to the content we might watch. I was planning to watch some of this competitive Overwatch from the Middle East, the Saudi Arabian tournament, but now I'm I really just want to go back and relive the glory of that 2018 Chinese Overwatch World Cup team. If you don't know who Rui is, so he was the coach of Chengdu during during the 2021 season. And so if you guys don't remember, like, this was the team that was known for like having Ameng just playing as a ball one trick, basically. Even when ball wasn't super meta, they were just doing crazy shit with ball on the Ameng. I think they were also like, hold on, who else was on this roster in 2021? Was it late? They had like Jinmu on this roster, I think, who was just like popping off on Pharah constantly during, it was Jinmu that was playing the Pharah in these rosters. So you'd have like these crazy ass, compositions with like Ball and Pharah, when Ball and Pharah were not even remotely meta at the time. And so I don't know. I'm excited to see Rui. He had like some weird role in last year's roster. He was like the honorary advisor of the team in 2022. And who knows what that means. But he left in April, I think, cited some health reasons and stuff. But it'll be fun to have him back in the league. It's going to be fun to see him reunited with Guxue for the upcoming season. And I'm interested to see if they try to, sign a fully Chinese roster rather than going with the mixed Chinese Korean roster for the season. But we don't have any other roster news coming out of the Hangzhou Spark. I think, in fact, they may have tweeted about how they're still working on their roster. Where is it? Yeah, I think I saw a tweet that said they were like looking to February maybe to announce. Oh, here it is. It's the very first fucking tweet on there. Due to the extended free agent window and preparation time, we plan to announce our roster for 2023 at the end of February. The changes to like the minimum age requirement from 18 to 17 probably threw a wrench in a lot of teams' systems in terms of like how they were approaching the offseason window, how they were approaching free agency and things like that. So because of that, they're going to be announcing their roster at the end of February. So we're still like a month and a half away. So, but really, head coach, exciting to see kind of who they build around him in Guxue and Shai going into the season. But so I think that's some good, fun news to start with. Let's go to some unfun news next. Halo is reporting. So for some context here, it was reported a few months ago that NYXL was departing from their entire roster and was instead going to try to pivot to. Not try to pivot, but basically they were going to require the roster that they signed to be a part of marginalized groups within the Overwatch community. At the time, the decision was met with a ton of backlash. It seemed like NYXL's approach was like, take it on the chin, weather the storm, proceed forward with it. We want to have this identity as a team that signs players from marginalized groups. Halo comes out with this like follow-up report several months later. We'll just read it. It says, according to multiple sources, NYXL has slightly softened their stance on their mixed marginalized roster. Sources stated that NYXL were supposedly looking to ensure the marginalized players on the roster started. Sources now believe that requirement has been lifted to try and acquire players seemingly from contenders. It is believed that this will make playing for NYXL slightly more appealing, and then he adds an addendum at the end. NYXL are also supposedly offering contracts above league minimum and offering housing in New York City, according to sources. Look, this was a bad idea from the start, not because marginalized people don't need representation in the league, but there's a difference between diversity and representation and tokenism, right? And when your approach to building a roster And this is even more like what's being reported as where they're pivoting to, I believe, is even more like even worse tokenism. Like we were already bad to begin with, but this idea that, you know, we were going to go out, we were going to sign marginalized players, and if we signed them, they had to start. You know, you're not doing anything but setting up those marginalized players to receive criticism and flack, and just you're weaponizing a community to, you know, whether it's true or not, say these people didn't deserve the role because of their skill. They were signed for these reasons. And then you venture into the land of tokenism, right? And you're not signing players based on their merit. You're signing to, you know, reach some sort of like representation spread and using that to build your brand identity around it. And you're not viewing people as people anymore. You're viewing people as a means to messaging, a means to an end. And now to just say like, well, we still want to have marginalized people on our roster, but it's okay if they sit on the bench. It's just we want people from marginalized groups to be on our roster. Like, that's just as fucked, if not more fucked, that it's like we just want to be able to point and say we have signed people from these communities to be a part of our team. And I don't know what's going on, guys. Like NYXL as an org coming into the Overwatch League 5-6 years ago, whatever. An amazing roster, amazing talent, often underperformed, but you know, was a very well respected. And you know, ever since this stuff started coming out at the end of during the beginning of this offseason, it's just been a fucking train wreck. And this is not the way to go about highlighting and representing people from marginalized communities in the Overwatch League, or in Overwatch in general, right? There are 1,000 better ways to go about this. And when you have people from the communities that you're trying to represent saying this is a bad idea, and you refuse to listen, and the plan isn't working, and so you pivot to an even worse idea, it's tone deaf. It's ridiculous. I hope that the idea as a whole totally fails, and that teams start to truly work on ways to actually make a difference with people who are in the community from marginalized groups. But this is definitely not it. Everybody agrees this is not it. And NYXL is going to be left kind of holding the bag at the end of the day, because they've tried to put the pedal to the metal and double down on this piss poor strategy of building a roster. They've missed a large portion of the offseason and are going to probably fail miserably going into the season, and it's their fault, right? So I don't have a whole lot else to say about that, but just that it's a bad idea, and NYXL should move on from that idea very quickly. All right, next story. Don, former Paris Eternal player, he tweeted yesterday, exploring the option of maybe going collegiate, most likely for fall, since I won't be making Overwatch League 2023, and I want to study again. We've seen a couple players, former pros, talking about going the collegiate route. I think we actually saw Dante, former, let's see, did Dante collegiate? I think Dante was talking about going collegiate, or maybe he was just responding to people saying they wanted to go collegiate. Hello, Edgar. Yeah, this was his tweet. He said, "Weird that people are complaining about ex-Overwatch League players in collegiate. If you don't have a big following, then collegiate is by far the best option, and honestly better than joining some Overwatch League teams." So I get where the criticism of former pros taking a step back into collegiate gets its roots. I don't think it's a valid criticism, right? So, NCAA governs all of, college sports at a certain tier. college traditional sports. And they have a rule that once you go pro, you then indefinitely become ineligible in the sport that you would want to participate in. So if I'm a basketball player, I choose to forego my sophomore through senior year of college to then go to the NBA. I get drafted. My career fizzles out. I still technically have 3 years of eligibility to come back to collegiate and play. But because I've become a pro in that sport, I am no longer eligible to enter in to the collegiate sphere and take up a roster spot, a scholarship from groups. A couple points here. Number one, there's no entity under the sun who looks at the NCAA and says, we want to do it like they do it. The NCAA is such a piss poorly run organization, and it's just so widely known how piss poorly it's run, that we shouldn't take what they believe is like a fair approach and broadly apply it to anything else that we're trying to do. Secondly, I think that the difference in going pro in a sport versus going pro in, say, Overwatch is, number one, if you make it to the pro, like the highest pro level in the NBA, right? To the point where you are considered a pro and you get paid, there's a sizable amount of money that you make in the NBA. So like if you're a rookie and let's say you just like make a roster, you are guaranteed at least a $1 million rookie minimum going into college or going into the NBA. If you make a roster, now that's a big if, right? But like, so if we look at like the G League, for instance, and you make a G League roster, you're going to make about $41,000 a year, which is probably a little more like, probably a little more comparable to what, say, like an Overwatch League Pro is going to make. However, there are a million different options for playing professional basketball. And if you're talented enough to be like an NBA G League player, you can go play overseas, for instance, right? You can play for another NBA team's G League roster. Like, you have multiple options to continue your professional career in the NBA or in professional basketball. If you choose to go to the NBA, lose your eligibility, and you can't step back into college, right? Overwatch doesn't have that, you know? And especially given that the minimum age for players was lowered from 18 to 17, widening the pool of young talent that teams are going to want to go out and sign. These older guys who maybe have missed out on their college years because they've participated in Overwatch League and made, $70, $75, $100,000 maybe a year, are now left like, okay, well, there's only a limited number of professional career growth opportunities in the Overwatch League or in Overwatch in general for me to continue to grow my career into my late 20s, into my 30s, like as a lifetime, right? I want to go back to college, get a degree, and if they can do that and mitigate some of the costs by joining like a Maryville college who has like a scholarship program for their Overwatch League players, like, number one, there's not as many people vying for those scholarships. And number two, I don't think you've received enough benefit from going pro in the Overwatch League, especially in like Don's case, right? Like Don played a couple years on the Paris Eternal. They weren't super successful. He didn't like build a huge name for himself, right? You haven't given yourself as big of an advantage in taking that step. And you haven't also set yourself up financially to be able to possibly cover the costs of college, stepping back, right? And even if these guys want to stay in esports, to do that in a meaningful professional way outside of like coaching and player development, you're going to look at things like business degrees and marketing degrees and things like that. And so I think people are drawing like a false equivalence between how the NCAA approaches amateur versus professional that just shouldn't necessarily exist in the Overwatch League. career windows are really, really small in professional Overwatch and esports in general, like in terms of like competing as a professional in esports. And so I think like, I don't think it's unreasonable for a former pro who's, you know, surrendered his college years to play this game at the highest level to say, okay, I can still give myself an advantage by playing collegiate. Maybe I get a partial scholarship to play on like a varsity level Overwatch League team or something like that. I get a little bit of my school paid for. I get to build up my education. Like, I don't see that as a big deal, and I think it's a little weird. And also like the level of competition and prestige and like notoriety of the college scene doesn't match what we see in like in college football and college basketball, even in like college baseball, college hockey, right? Collegiate esports is still very much in its infancy, and I think it might even do more good to bring awareness to have guys who are known from the Overwatch League come into the collegiate scene and bring whatever fan base they have. Like, if Dante is saying that because he himself wants to go back and play college Overwatch, and like, people will tune in to watch college Overwatch who may never have done it just because they're Dante fans. They want to watch Dante play the Doom Tank, you know? So if you have a problem with Overwatch League players going to college, number one, I'm genuinely curious what your argument is. Like, because maybe I'm missing something that's totally valid. I just think it's a strange thing to get upset about. It's not that I don't think collegiate esports should be taken that seriously. It's just that I don't think they're taken seriously enough now for this to impact it competitively in a negative way. So, and until there are other opportunities for former Overwatch players to grow their careers in the esport they've given like the formative years of their life to, I think we should not be able to penalize. We shouldn't penalize them for wanting to go back and use the skill set that they have to possibly better themselves, get an education, and things like that. So, so that's the sandwich shop for today. Again, short news week, but yeah, definitely want to hear what you guys think about Rui coming back to coming to the Hangzhou Spark, being reunited with Guxue. I want to hear what you think about NYXL and the clusterfuck that's been their approach to roster building. And if you guys are somebody who are against former pros going into collegiate, I want to know why. So leave those in the comments below. And yeah, we'll see you next time.